Hello everyone. The BBC recently ran a news story about a big scientific study on the health effects of alcohol consumption. The scientific article was published on the 23rd of August 2018 in the famous medical journal The Lancet, and the BBC news story and other news stories based on the press release came out the next day. The new claim made by the Lancet article, a claim repeated in headlines in the BBC story and in other news media, is that no level of alcohol is safe to drink. That is actually a remarkable claim because it contradicts the widespread and quite well justified previous belief that light alcohol consumption is on average good for the consumer's health. I thought it would be interesting to check the statistics of this Lancet paper, so I read it carefully, and it turns out the claim that no level of alcohol is safe to drink is, in my view, extremely misleading. And none of the so-called experts mentioned in the press release seem to come anywhere close to discussing the reason why that is, so I will try to do so in this video. Before I start, let me say there are many perfectly good reasons to avoid alcohol, such as religious or moral reasons, or specific medical problems, but this Lancet study is a medical statistics study on the effects of alcohol on people who do consume it, and it is purely those medical and statistics questions and statements which I want to check in this video. Now, the Lancet article itself, I think, is beautifully written, well, quite nicely written, and it does a great deal of groundwork to find out how much alcohol is consumed by many different populations around the world, and for each level of drinking, they also found out what the average health risks are for 23 health conditions that are known to be affected by alcohol consumption. Those health conditions included a few types of heart disease, of which one major type is found to be made less dangerous by light alcohol consumption, and the conditions included several cancers, such as cancer of the esophagus, all of which are made on average more dangerous by any level of alcohol consumption. Among the 23 factors they considered, they also considered the health risks from self-harm, traffic injuries, and very importantly, tuberculosis, all of which they found to be on average more dangerous due to any amount of alcohol consumption. So it is largely because of the last health condition, tuberculosis, that the Lancet article's claim becomes misleading, in my view. The scientists added up the total amount of extra risk or decreased risk caused by each level of alcohol consumption for each of the 23 health conditions, and they did so as a world average. And then they plotted a curve showing how the total health risk is altered by alcohol consumption of either, say, 0 drinks per day or 1 or 2 small drinks per day on average, where a drink per day was 10 grams of alcohol per day, a small glass of wine. In the past, medical scientists have often reported a so-called J-shaped curve, in which light alcohol consumption decreases the average health risk, before the risks then rise sharply with heavy alcohol consumption. So this produces, when you plot these risks on a graph, it looks like the letter J, with the health benefits of light alcohol consumption providing the curling dip of the letter J. In the new Lancet article, the graph had no dip. They produced a total risk graph which indicates that even light alcohol consumption made health worse. The reason I say this is misleading is because when they presented their results in the press release, there was an expert comment by Dr. Robin Burton, King's College London, UK, an expert, who said the results were clear and unambiguous and provided, quote, strong support for the guideline published by the Chief Medical Officer of the UK, who found that there is, quote, no safe level of alcohol consumption, end quotes. But that summary is quite wrong. because they were taking their Lancet paper graph of world average health effects and using it to justify health guidance about the effect of alcohol consumption for a UK audience. That is the clear implication of the way their results have been presented in the press release and in the resultant news articles. Clearly, they've been used to indicate health advice for a UK audience or similar Western audiences. But in the world average graph in the Lancet paper, the tiny increase in health risks of light drinking, that's 1 or maybe 2 small drinks per day on average, the increase in health risks of this light drinking was more than accounted for by an increased risk of tuberculosis, which is indeed a major killer in the world as a whole, but tuberculosis is extremely rare in the UK and in the developed world because it is vaccinated against, and even curable. Therefore, if the Lancet paper results were used to make a graph of health risks excluding the effect of tuberculosis, and that new graph could then be used to comment on health risks in places like the UK, then the small average health benefit of light alcohol consumption, the so-called J-shaped curve, would once again reappear. So, quite contrary to the press-released comment that the Lancet study justifies the Chief Medical Officer's claim that there is, quote, no safe level of alcohol consumption, in fact there apparently is still a very light level of alcohol consumption that does have some small health benefits, at least for a developed world audience. Some final follow-up questions. 1. Is the Lancet article faulty? Answer, in my opinion, no. The article itself is nicely written, and it does present its results as a world average health effect. The fact the article does not explicitly include a paragraph to prevent the misinterpretation done by the press release is not really a problem with the scientific article. 2. But is the press release misleading, including its expert comment? In my opinion, yes. Very much so, for the reasons I've explained in this video. 3. Is there anything else in the article statistics which is questionable? Answer, well, I think the way they deal with traffic accidents is arguable and open to a long debate, which I don't want to go into at this point. But those statistics also have some bearing on the conclusion about the effect of light drinking. Okay, so that's my views about how the latest alcohol advice is based on what looks like a misleading interpretation of the Lancet paper. So keep your eyes open for their graph with no J-shape, because this is a very large study, and we can expect to hear more about it over the next few years. Comment in the comment section if you like, including particularly any comments about whether you think I've done my statistical interpretation right or wrong in this case. Thanks very much.